in order for you to grow, you're going to have to challenge yourself.
When it comes to training, there are two approaches some people prefer, right? Focusing on purely the technique and
that way is slowing down, working on that mind-muscle connection.
I should have cheated on you. I should have ignored you and told you I fell asleep on you. I should have seen other people.
Something you said, what you've seen as a common mistake is how people spot.
For you to lose body fat, you need to be...
What's a day in the life of Gautham like in terms of nutrition? What time to wake up to sleeping?
Should have played with your mind. I should have focused on mine.
Cardio is crucial. You need it because there's no way.
Give us some insight on what are some of the important supplements. Welcome back to another brilliant podcast. Been a while. We've not done this in a while. But when the opportunity came, I did not want to postpone. No long introduction, right? I got one of Sri Lanka's finest athletes who competed abroad, taking the fitness industry to another level. So before I start this conversation, I want to pause and tell, if you're watching this video, do not skip, right? We're going to talk about so many things: muscle building, weight loss, competing, supplementation, so much of knowledge. I saw him at the gym. I've seen him at the gym a few years back, and seeing him around, and one of the biggest guys as well as a humble giant is in the house, right? His name is Anthony Gautham. Competes in the IFBB international stage, right? So has a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and absolutely excited and honored to have this conversation with him. Welcome, Gautham. Let's give everyone watching a little intro about yourself.
Thank you, Joe. I'm Anthony Gautham. I've been training for about 11 years and I decided to compete in 2018 for the first time. I've done 5 shows and we'll go into a little bit more detail over the podcast.
I want to first know what got you into this, right? So you were studying at Asian International School, right? Obviously, you had the passion for fitness. What got you into this, and how did you kind of start your career in fitness?
So I used to play basketball when I was younger, and when I was in Sri Lanka, I played for Asian International School. Played since I was about 9 or 10.
Okay.
So I was fine playing here. There was no problem. And then I moved to the UK in 2005.
Right.
Playing under 18 was not a problem. And then I got into uni. And then at uni, I was playing against guys who were a lot bigger than me. So I decided, you know what, I need to kind of get a little bit stronger to stop myself getting pushed around on the basketball court.
Yep.
So that's kind of what got me into the gym. So I basically go in and I started off training my legs, believe it or not. It would just be doing a lot of plyometric stuff, box jumps, explosive squats. And eventually I kind of slowly transitioned into training my upper body. And then I kind of was, I guess, how much my body changed kind of got me into sticking with it and staying on the journey.
Okay. I kind of want to dive straight into the questions I have listed, right? When I was prepping for this, I realized there are so many things I want to kind of get your expertise on, because obviously with your experience and you being in the industry. So I'm going to dive straight into it, Gautham. Most of the audience watching this wants to build muscle, right? If you look at the average Sri Lankan, teenager, what their goal is to, look like these big guys you see on social media. What you see is what they in reality wants is to build as much as muscle mass as possible. What are some of the key tips or key advice you got for everyone watching for us on building muscle? I know it's a big topic, but what are some of the key strategies and things to go for in building muscle?
So my personal opinion would be, I live by these 3 fundamental pillars. I'd say diet and nutrition before you consider anything. There's no point in you going to the gym and spending 2-3 hours if your diet and nutrition is not on point. Second, I would say, is your training and progressive overload. So there's no point going to the gym week in, week out, lifting the same weight for the same reps. That's not going to help you build muscle. In order for you to grow, you're going to have to challenge yourself. You're going to have to push weights, push limits that you haven't touched before. And that's what's going to help you create new stimulus and help you add more muscle. And thirdly, this one is often neglected a lot. I would say sleep and recovery,
Okay.
because that's when your body repairs itself and it grows. So having adequate rest days and sleeping a minimum of 6 to 8 hours a day.
Okay. On that, now I think this opens up a topic. You mentioned progressive overload. That's not something everyone is very familiar with. How would you explain what is progressive overload?
Okay, so when you go to training, there's 3 ways you can progressively overload your muscle. The most common way would be adding a weight to the reps you're doing. For example, say take bench press. You go in and you do 100 kg, say for 10 reps. The next week when you go in, try and do 101 kg
Okay.
for even 8 reps or 9 reps. That's you pushing yourself. That's creating new stimulus. That's going to help you grow. And make sure you logbook. That's another thing.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of people here don't do is they don't log their lifts.
Okay.
So they go in, they'll throw on a weight, they feel good, they do it. The next week they come in, they'll throw on another weight, maybe less,
Okay.
usually less, maybe more, and they have no idea where their progress is at.
Right.
So that's adding, the first way is adding a weight to your lifts. The second would be adding reps.
Okay.
So you could do the same. For example, you could do, like I said, 100 kg for 10 reps. That's the first session. The next session you go in, you try and do 100 kg for 11 reps
Okay.
or 12 reps. You hit that target, then you drop the reps down, increase the weight slightly. A third one I would say is your rest intervals.
Okay.
So normally I would take 2 to 3 minutes, but say you stall on the other 2 is bringing your rest periods down.
Right.
So if you're normally taking 3 minutes, try and do that for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Do that. But then I kind of do that with my accessory lifts. I prefer to have a 3-minute rest period when I'm doing my bigger lifts, because that puts me in a safer position and I know I'm going to hit the numbers I'm after.
Okay. Well, so while we're staying on the topic of training, right? What I also kind of want to ask is, when it comes to training, there are 2 approaches some people prefer, right? Focusing on purely the technique and tempo, things like that, versus there's a mindset, when I go to the gym, I got to lift the heaviest as possible. So let's stay a little on training and kind of discuss, what are your thoughts on that?
Me personally, as a bodybuilder, I think the more time you spend on attention
Yep.
is going to help you grow. It's going to
Okay.
create more stimulus, more hypertrophy. In the long run, it's going to benefit you. And also focusing on the eccentric is going to bring you far more benefit. It's less energy demanding and it's most bang for buck. Whereas if you go in, I mean, it makes sense if you're a power lifter,
Yeah.
your main goal is to move the weight from A to B.
Right.
So lifting as heavy as you can, that's your goal. Each week you go in, you want to hit a PB.
Yep.
But as a bodybuilder, you're trying to grow more muscle.
Okay.
So your goal should be, how can I maximize hypertrophy? And that way is slowing down, working on that mind-muscle connection, focusing on switching from the shortened range to the lengthened range.
Okay.
So your shortened range is usually when the muscle is contracted.
Right.
Your lengthened, for example, the bicep curl at the top, when you bring your arm up, your muscle shortened,
Okay.
peak of the contraction. And then as you go down, transition into the lengthened range, you want to control it as much as possible.
So what we are referring to is the transition phase of the exercise to be very controlled,
Very in a controlled
right?
manner, yeah.
So let's take example wise, what you're referring to is, even if it's a bench press, what you commonly see is the guy kind of taking the weight down with no control at all.
yeah.
What you are advising is to kind of add some kind of
Yeah. So
tempo to
usually a good tempo would be, I'd say bare minimum 1 second, but I aim
Okay.
from a 2 to 3 tempo. So
Right.
I would do a 3-second count in my head. So I pick up the bar as I lower the bar from the top to the bottom. So as my arms are extended out, my chest is in a lengthened position.
right.
As I bring the bar down and as my chest contracts into the, sorry, it's the other way around. So as I move from a shortened
Yeah.
position from the top all the way down to the lengthened position, I would have it in a very controlled manner.
So you would count in your head.
I would count in my head. I'd go 3, 2, 1. I'd stop in my chest for a millisecond, and then I'd move from the lengthened back to the shortened, and I would try and use no momentum.
Okay.
So the little pauses when you transition. So as you bring the bar down,
right.
stop for a millisecond, and then move it back up.
That's some awesome tips. So while we're talking, I think what will be useful is, at some point, if you can kind of go to a gym and kind of demonstrate some of these tips you're talking about. And something we spoke off camera as well is about spotting in the gym, right? I'm just going to open the conversation here and kind of ask something. You said what you've seen as a common mistake is how people spot. What's the correct way to spot in an exercise, and what's a mistake you're seeing here, or how do you advise for us to kind of change things around here?
How I personally like someone to spot me, I would say is, say I have a rep target of 8 to 10 reps. I would try and hit a bare minimum of 7 reps.
Okay.
And my spotter would only touch the bar so he would pay attention to my entire set. So usually you can tell as the rep speed slows down. So for example, the speed of rep 1 and rep 2 will be a lot faster than the speed of rep 6 and 7. So as that speed tends to slow down, and then if he feels I'm going to struggle on, say, rep 8, then he adds in a little bit of support. Just with 2 fingers, and I would take that down. I would still, even if the minute he touches the bar, that would go down in my logbook as +1. So that would mean I've done 7 reps on my own, and I have had 1 assisted rep. So that's a target I have in mind for the next time I'm in the gym. I would try and do 8 reps by myself, and he's helping me with 1 if I need. So that way I'm still using what I said earlier, progressive overload.
Okay. That I think that can also lead to the question of ego lifting, right? Sometimes I feel like what we, or majority kind of commonly make a mistake is to load more than what we can lift, and then kind of expect the spotter
to lift the weight,
to do more work. So you wouldn't really encourage people to. How do we find? Is it the logbook the solution to see what's the correct weight I can lift where I push myself? Not something, because I think what we are eyeing is something that's not comfortable but not extremely impossible as
impossible, yeah. A good range, like you should, if you're trying to put on muscle, you're a bodybuilder, you should be working in the 6 to 9 rep range for your loading sets. And your back off sets anywhere from 12 to 15.
Right.
So you pick a weight where, if you pick the weight and you can only do 3 reps or 2 reps, that's an automatic indication the rep's too heavy. I'm sorry, the weight's too heavy. So you lower the weight, and then you pick a weight where you can do, if you can do 6 reps bang on, okay, that's a weight you now have to work on. So the next time you come in, right, last week I done, say 50 kg for 6 reps. I'm going to aim for 7. So the minute you hit 9, you've deserved the right to go increase the weight and aim for 6 again. So small increments, increasing the weight and sticking to that rep range.
And I think something I picked up from you is the importance of a logbook. I guess to do any of what you're saying, you need to kind of take notes of what you're doing currently. And again, another thing, we just was having the conversation before starting the podcast, was you were saying how I was asking the question, what's the difference you see between the gyms here and in terms of training, us training in local gyms also, what have you noticed there? If I were to put that question again to you, how would you answer that? What are some differences you see between the local gyms? Because you obviously train in Sri Lanka as well as a lot of international gyms. What are some of the key differences you have seen?
Well, people are they go into the gym there with a plan. It's never freestyle. I mean, this is not commercial gyms. I'm talking about bodybuilding gyms. Yeah. From the minute they walk in, when they finish their warm-up, they know exactly what they're going to do. The entire session is planned out. Yes, it's fine if you want to swap an exercise that's very similar. For example, say you're doing incline barbell press and someone's using the incline barbell press and you're pressed for time. It's okay for you to go and do incline dumbbell press. That's totally fine. But what I noticed with people here is they kind of come in and they're like, my buddy's doing, back today. I'll do back. But you just done back yesterday. You haven't given yourself enough time to recover. So make sure your days are set, which muscle group you're training, and also don't overtrain or don't do too many sets in your first exercise. The most common mistake I've seen in gyms here is everyone is obsessed with the mindset of, I must do 4 sets on every exercise.
Right.
So someone, for example, they're training chest. They go in, they're like, okay, I'm going to do 4 sets of barbell bench press. Then I'm going to do 4 sets of incline barbell press. Then I'm going to do 4 sets of decline. And then they go and do flies for another 10 on different angles for 4 or 5 sets. But here's the problem. The minute you've done 4 sets on your first exercise, you've fatigued yourself out. You're not going to be able to carry the same intensity all the way through the session. So just pick an exercise, 2 all-out sets. 1 loading, 1 back off, 1 rep in reserve, and go to failure.
Right.
When I mean go to failure, that
let's touch on that. What is go to failure?
Yeah, so keep that. When I mean 1 rep in reserve, I mean, so you pick, say you're going for 9 reps.
Right.
and you feel that you're going to fail on the 9th rep. So you keep one in the tank and you go for the number below.
Okay.
So that way you're not overexerting yourself and you can still carry that through to your next.
I want to help
exercise.
to kind of help our audience kind of understand what Gautham is teaching here. So let's go example or scenario wise. Let's say today is my chest day, right? Or my push day. And how many, just to kind of get a guideline, how many exercises would you recommend for, let's say, a muscle group?
I would recommend is 4.
4
exercises.
Right.
So I normally like to pre-exhaust the muscle.
Okay.
So I would always start with a fly.
Right.
So a fly is something you can get away with doing an additional. So you can get away with 3 sets.
Okay.
So I would do 3 sets, get the blood flowing into the muscle.
Right.
3 sets at whatever angle you prefer.
Okay.
A fly. Then I would go into, usually I like, because growing up, everyone was obsessed with doing flat bench.
Yeah.
So most people have their lower chest more developed than the upper.
Yeah.
So I tend to focus on my upper chest a lot more.
Okay.
So I would
start with the weak.
I would start with the fly, and then I would do either incline dumbbell press or machine press. Then I would go and do another press. I'd pick. So if I done incline dumbbell, I'd go and do like a decline plate loaded press.
Okay.
And 2 sets there. 2 sets on the incline, 2 sets on the decline press. And the last exercise I do another fly at a different angle to what I done on my first set.
Okay. So you picked your 4 exercises. You're going 2 sets each for exercise, or you?
No, so for the flies, the first exercise, which was flies, I would do 3 sets.
Okay.
Then I would do 2 on the incline,
Okay.
2 on the decline, and then I would do 3 again on flies.
Let's break it further. That 2 sets, would you consider your first where you keep a little reserve and the second as where you go all out? How do you what's your approach for those 2 sets for the exercise?
So I would, so this is where you can either keep a rep in reserve or you can go to failure. Also depends on your recovery capability and how much, whether you're in a surplus or deficit.
Right.
If you're in a calorie surplus, you can get away with going to failure. If you're in a deficit, obviously recovery is going to be hindered a little bit.
Yeah.
So I would advise you to keep a rep in reserve.
Okay.
So the first set, incline dumbbell press, I would aim anywhere from 6 to 9 reps.
Okay.
I would say I get 8 reps there. That's fine. I would usually, I don't like doing grinder reps. If I feel like the 8th rep was the tempo slowed down and I'd really struggle getting the weight up, I would stop there. I personally don't like doing reps that are really grinded out, just to avoid any niggles or injuries. Because in the past, that's when you can that puts your shoulder in a vulnerable position. And I personally don't like doing grinded reps, but then everyone's different. If you feel you can go for an additional one, go for it. And then I would drop the weight by 20% and I would do a back off set. This would be anywhere from 10 to 14 reps.
Right.
So say I get 12 reps there, I would take a note of that. And then next time I'm in, I know I need to do a bare minimum of 8 and 12 on those. If I match them, it's an all right session. But if I've added +1, I've progressively overloaded my session because I've got 1 more rep than I did the previous week. So if you work out the total tonnage, so for example, say you do 100 reps for 10, the total tonnage there is 1,000 kg, right? Okay. And you do 11, that's 1,100. So you've lifted 100 kg more.
Right. Okay. So you over time accumulate all of that.
Over time, you want to
that is what's gonna
the load
help you. Since we are on training, there's so much questions to ask, but I want also to make sure we get the most important information out of Gautham. Another thing which we discussed at the gym, I think first, was the debate between machines and free weights. Our mindset is, or something that we've commonly heard is, bench press, deadlifts, squats are the king of all movements. And for muscle building also, we're talking specifically on muscle building because that's a lot what Gautham carries expertise on. Squat, bench, deadlift, are these mandatory for muscle building? Or what's your take on machines versus free weight debate? This has been a debate everywhere. What's your personal take?
I think people are so taken into squat, bench, and deadlift because back in the day when Arnold Schwarzenegger used to train, they didn't have access to as many machines as we do today. Okay. So he built his physique off a lot of free weights. So people still have that mentality, I need to train the way Arnold or Ronnie did. Yeah. But the first thing they need to understand is your genetics are very different to theirs.
Sure.
What they do and what you do, you're not going to get the same results. And then with today, we have so many different machines that you can successfully isolate each muscle group without putting it in a vulnerable position.
Okay.
So for example, you take, let me go shoulder press, for example, right?
Yeah.
If say you've progressed throughout the dumbbell range and you've got to over 50 kg, getting that dumbbell up in that position alone puts you, it's a high risk factor. You're going to need a spotter to help you get up there. And I personally don't like doing that. Yes, I've done it before, but I feel you can successfully load your muscles in a plate loaded shoulder press far better than you can with dumbbells. And you're in a safer place. All you have to focus on is moving the weight from A to B in a controlled manner.
Right.
And you're getting the same stimulus. Yes, stability comes into play. They say, oh, yes, it has its pros and cons, but in the long run, you'd rather avoid injuries. This way, if you're avoiding an injury, and for someone that can train 2 years and someone who does a dumbbell press for 60 kg and gets hurt in 5 months, who's going to make more progress, you know? The guy that's safer and training for a longer period of time.
Would you bring to a conclusion that if you got the right machines, there could be a better way to go at building muscle in comparison to the squat, bench and deadlift or the free weight movements?
Oh, 100%. Like I've been with a coach, Callum, one of the muscle mentors, and he does my entire diet and my training. And he hasn't had me do a single bench,
when was the last time you did
squat or deadlift in over a year. It's only in this last training block, which was a month ago, that we added one set of deadlifts in, just to add a little bit of lower back thickness. But then with today's machines, you can pretty much target every muscle group and still hit it, you know? Like me personally, I prefer banded rack pulls over deadlifts because I can hit my back a lot harder. And I prefer it. It doesn't put me in a vulnerable position because I've had niggles in my back in the past from deadlifting. And I haven't, like the last time I done heavy deadlifts was probably 6 years ago.
Okay. I'm going to get very specific on this one because I feel like this is another common thing. So when it comes to building legs, everyone's like squats are the great master exercise of building big quads, right? And most often the argument that comes along with it, as you said, you know, Ronnie Coleman used to squat 800 pounds. Look at his legs. The olden day guys. If I'm getting specific for quad development, if you had to pick between a squat and I think you can look at a machine like a hack squat, right, or a leg extension or any of the machines, where would you make your personal choice?
I've seen this a million times as well. If you're squatting, unless you have unreal mind muscle connection and you can really control the tempo in the eccentric, isolating your quads are very difficult because the minute you load the bar over 400 pounds, I personally feel that the eccentric just goes out the window. I struggle with it and connecting with it because it also puts a toll on your lower back. And I have 2 back days in my split at the moment. So I try not to fatigue my back because I can hit it as hard as I can the following day. So if you want to isolate your quads, I would say my go-to would be the hack squat and leg extensions and adductors. Abductors. They work quite well. And also the pendulum squat is great.
Awesome. So I feel like what we can kind of come to a conclusion there is if you are, because the counter argument, some will not have access to most of these machines, then of course free weight movements might be in your favor. But if you do have access, when it comes to isolating the muscle as well as muscle development, you would say machines are the way to go.
I personally prefer them because I can load them in a safe manner. And I can control the weight a lot better. And I can really isolate the mind-muscle connections a lot better. And in the end of the day, you know, if you're safer, it's going to work out in your favor. Why put yourself at risk when you have today's day and age, you have so many machines that's going to get you the same results.
Awesome. touched on training quite a bit, but we know a great physique is built on a great nutrition, which is, I would say, the more important part. As you said, Gautham kind of ranked nutrition over training as well. Whereas here we've kind of come to the mindset, I need to go to the gym 6 days a week. So let's get on to nutrition, Gautham. How important is it? I would start the question by saying our excuse is with the Sri Lankan food, it's very difficult to build a great physique, right? But you have coached clients who are based in Sri Lanka, and I don't think you take anything as an excuse, right? Let's dive into nutrition. What are some of the key important nutrition tips you got for us?
I would say everyone in Sri Lanka has, to be fair, I made the same mistake a few years ago when I started training. For some reason, everyone here believes that carbohydrates are bad for you.
Okay.
It's the complete opposite.
Right.
You need carbohydrates to perform well in the gym. And personally, it's very beneficial if you time them around your workout window.
Yep.
So your workout parameter is crucial. And that's where you want to structure having most of your carbohydrates.
Okay.
So I personally would structure 35% pre, 35% post workout, and then say 10% intra workout, and the balance split throughout the day, however I prefer. That's going to give you energy in the gym. It's going to normally post workout, your glycogen levels are depleted.
Yeah.
It's going to help replenish them, and it's going to help with recovery overall.
Right.
Because the last thing I see a lot of people follow keto diets. Yes, they work. They help you lose fat, but is that sustainable long term? Can you really go 3-4 months without having carbs? Is that good for you? No, because once you come out of those 3-4 months, you're going to end up overeating. You're going to end up binging.
Yep.
So you want to pick something that people can follow long term. So all my clients, I'd say, hey, you can have rice, no problem. You want to have pasta, no problem. Oats, no problem. Just we slot it in where it helps them, and it's kind of everything's well balanced. We have enough protein, enough fats, enough carbohydrates, and then on your training days, and on your non-training days, we lower the carbs a little bit, bump the fats a bit, and that kind of keeps them in a sweet spot.
Right. Kind of staying true to nutrition on that topic. Something I personally, as well as I know a lot of people kind of struggle, is staying consistent with your diet. It's easier to start, saying I'm going to control my the food I take, all of that in the beginning of the year, or when you come to that, I want to transform my physique. But staying consistent, or doing that day over day, is the difficult part. What are some of your tips, or what are some of the ways we can kind of stick to it, and any advice you got on that?
I would say planning in advance.
Okay.
Because if you have to come back from work, and if you have to cook a clean meal, that's going to throw you off. If you're working 9 to 5, 9 to 6, and then you got to come back, you got to cook your rice, you got to cook your chicken. That's going to take up a lot of time, and you're going to have the time, you're not going to do it. I would say prepare your meals in advance.
Okay.
Prepare your protein. So if you like chicken, beef, prawns, whatever, prepare a little bit of it in bulk. Put it in Tupperware. Prepare your carbs, put it in Tupperware. And then when you come back, you're hungry, measure out what you need for the day or for that meal, and then have it. That's going to help you stay on track. And then if you do that for 4 weeks, you kind of get into the routine. You'll notice the changes. You'll notice your energy levels change, because a lot of the food here is really high in fats.
Okay.
They cook with a lot of oil, and they add in a lot of fats that are not good for you.
Okay.
So the cleaner your diet, first 4 weeks, you stick to it, and I guarantee you, your energy levels will change. You'll start feeling a lot better, and your mood overall will be elevated.
There's this conversation on that. People kind of say finding that balance, because unless you're on a competing kind of path with people's daily routines, it's very difficult to stay very precise on nutrition. Do you believe in balance, or do you think people kind of have to have a certain plan and go at it, or do you think where we can have that cheat meal on and off, or can you enjoy life? And
100%.
How did you go about that?
I think it all depends on your starting point. If you are X amount over your body weight you're supposed to be, for example, say you're 30-40 kilos over your body weight you're supposed to be for your height, then you can't really expect that balance to begin with, because you adding that cheat meal weekly is gonna hinder the progress a little bit to begin with. So what I tell clients is, I was like, okay, because the biggest problem I have with when I approach clients like that is keeping them motivated
Yeah.
for the duration of the program. So say we're doing a 16-week coaching block and they want to see results quickly.
Yeah.
So if they don't see what they expect to see in the first 3-4 weeks, they're going to fall off.
Okay.
So what I say is I was like, okay, let's pick, you give me 3 hard weeks. As a reward, you have a cheat meal. You go out, have a cheat meal, enjoy yourself.
Okay.
Or even if you want to have a night out, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Do what you want to do, blow off some steam, and then get back to the plan the following day.
Okay.
That kind of keeps them motivated, keeps them on track. And then also when they look at the scale and if they've dropped 10 kg in a couple of weeks, they're going to be like, you know what, this is working. Let me see how far I can take this.
Okay. Awesome. Right. Since we are again relying on nutrition, since we're discussing that topic of nutrition, another part of it is supplementation, right? As an IFBB competing athlete, give us some insight on what are some of the important supplements. Here you might have kind of noticed people kind of keep it higher than where it should be, rely or depend on that mindset of, oh, I take a protein, I'm gonna get big kind of concept. What are some of the important supplements? And on the topic of supplements, what do you have to kind of share some knowledge on that?
Okay, I would say supplements, yes, have a very crucial place and they do work, but you can't expect to substitute a supplement for real food.
Right.
They only work as long as your diet requirements are met. So for example, say you are a busy person working 9 to 5, you get 3 meals in, you get to the end of the day and you look at your, whatever you're tracking your food on, MyFitnessPal, and it says, oh, I've under-eaten my protein by 30 grams.
Okay.
That's the perfect time to add a scoop of whey protein, a whey isolate.
Right.
A whey or isolate protein. That's going to help you reach your protein requirements.
Right.
So I would say, first of all, get your diet and nutrition in check, and then use these as a bonus to help you boost your nutrition. But the 3 I would personally pick are, I'd pick a good isolate protein. I'd pick a creatine. A lot of people here frown on it, but I'd keep creatine in all year round.
Okay.
You don't need to cycle on and off. Keep it all, even on your non-training days.
Even on a cut, you use creatine?
I use creatine.
The concept of, it retaining water, you wouldn't agree with it?
In the past, my first competition, I did cut it out a few days before my comp, but then this time around, I kept creatine all the way through. And I didn't really notice much of a difference. So as long as you've kept it consistent all the way through, I'd say aim for 5 grams a day. That's a sweet spot.
Right in the year.
Yeah. You're good. And then there's a difference between these two. There's branch chain amino acid, BCAAs, as you guys know.
Okay.
That, yes, there's a lot of myths going on about it's not beneficial. To a certain extent, that's true because it doesn't have the right ratio of amino acids. So I don't use BCAAs, I use EAAs, essential amino acids. Essential amino acids have the right ratio. It should have at least 5 to 6 grams of leucine in it.
Okay.
And that's intra-workout.
Right.
Sip on that, that'll help you.
Okay.
So 3, isolate protein, creatine, and essential amino acids.
Right. Let's get to the supplementation of micronutrients, the vitamins, the zinc, the magnesium, fish oil. Those are also quite underrated, probably not spoken much of. Do you personally consume any of the vitamins? If so, what are they and how important are they for you?
So these are the vitamins I personally use. I use vitamin C, multivitamin, vitamin B complex. I also, because currently I'm on a calorie surplus, I try to keep it year round. I use a probiotic.
Okay.
Helps with digestion. I also use glucosamine, which is a joint support.
Right.
Because I've had joint issues in the past because I used to play a lot of basketball, like I said. So it keeps my joints in a sweet spot. What else do I use? And I use magnesium before bed.
Okay.
So those are the
So
vitamins.
these are some stuff you'd recommend
I'd recommend
for anyone for general health.
General health, yes.
Right. And again, I want to get a little specific on you, right? Because I feel like not every day do we get to talk to someone who's competing at that level, who has dedicated their life purely, to this sport. Just give me a run through, Gautham. What's a day in the life of Gautham like in terms of nutrition? What time to wake up to sleeping? what's your day like in terms of food? Let's show them.
Okay.
How tough or what the effort you put in.
So currently I'm on my off season.
Right.
So I'm trying to put on a little bit of, trying to grow a little bit, add a little bit of size. So I'd wake up, I do some steps. I have a step target daily.
Okay.
I try to do 10,000 steps a day, but I'll try and get about maybe 25% to 30% of them done in a fasted state.
Okay.
So wake up, I usually have a treadmill at home. I don't have one here, but I have one back in the UK. So I do about 25 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
Just casual walk. I mean, nothing too crazy, just walk on it. I
Right.
watch an episode of whatever I want
Yeah.
on Netflix. Get that done. That sets me up for the day. I'm awake, my appetite's in a good place. So then I'll have my first meal. I know this is going to sound weird. So I put my rice to cook for the entire day. So I cook about 300 grams of raw rice. That works out to about 1.2 kg of cooked rice. So meal one, I have 350 grams of rice, it's cooked rice, and about 170 grams of steak.
Okay.
I add a little bit of low salt. That's got pink Himalayan salt, and its potassium content's a bit higher. So I had that. Cooking, I usually add all herbs and spices are fine. So I add chili powder, soy sauce, that's okay. Low-cal cooking spray. So that's for meal one. And I also have 2 rice cakes with a little bit of almond butter with that.
Okay.
Meal 2, chicken and rice. Again, about 300 grams of rice, 160, 170 grams of chicken.
Okay.
Marinated with chili powder, paprika, and then a little bit of local sauce.
Okay.
Whatever's lying about, Nando's sauce or whatever you want. So that's meal 1, meal 2 in. Pre-workout, I'd have 3 bagels with a little bit of jam and 2 muffins.
These off season.
This is off
Right,
season,
yeah.
2 muffins. So that, if you notice, I've really packed my pre-workout with a lot of carbs. So I try to have that about 90 minutes before I train.
You're advising us to take carbs pre-workout.
That's the best
Majority,
time
yeah.
to take it.
Okay.
It sets you up well for your workout.
That's approx about 90 minutes before, is it?
Yeah, 90 minutes to 2 hours before I kind of have it in.
Sure.
Gives me enough time because then I have a pre-workout before I train.
Right.
It's got caffeine in it, a bit of taurine. It sets me up for the workout. During the workout, I have my essential amino acids with some carb powder.
Right.
That helps me add to the carb count for the day.
Yeah.
Post-workout, and again, I'd have 3 bagels with jam.
Okay.
And so I'd have that first. And then about 20 minutes later, I'd have a protein shake.
Right.
Then I go on to my last solid meal for the day. 350 grams rice, 170 grams chicken, and then 2 more rice cakes with almond butter.
Okay.
Last meal of the day would be 120 grams of oats
Right.
with 50 grams of whey protein
Okay.
and about 20 grams of almond butter.
That's insanely a lot of food for
So yeah, that's just over 5,000 calories
per day.
per day. That's on training days.
Okay.
Non-training days are a little bit less. So I swap out the pre-workout and post-workout comes out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd kind of advise to keep the calories high on training days and keep it slight
Just
difference.
to accommodate for the energy.
Okay. For you
Consumption.
who have not met Gautham or probably can't gauge how big he is on camera, right? He's a big unit, needs a lot of nutrition to keep him running. Again, Gautham, a few things I also want to kind of touch before we wrap up this conversation is another point is cardio. Looked past often and people say, doing too much cardio will make you skinny. Like people are scared to do cardio is a mindset we kind of see often here. What's your take on cardio?
Cardio, if you're trying to drop body fat and weight, cardio is crucial. You need it because there's no way. Yes, you can drop your food into such a deficit that you're going to lose. Yeah. But it gets to a certain point that it becomes unrealistic. It become unhealthy. Yeah. Like you never want anyone under 1,000 calories. Okay. So you use the synergy of cardio and a calorie deficit to drop body fat. So I would always personally, when I train clients, I would say, right, let's start off with, say, for example, 25 minutes cardio, and we put you on a 300 deficit. We see how you get on for the week. You track your weight every day. You let me know. And if you're dropping weight, great. If you're not dropping weight, we change one of the 2 variables. And then you drop weight, good. And then sometimes you might stall that we need to touch on both the variables. So
Okay.
we increase cardio by say 5-10 minutes, and you drop calories by another small increment.
Right.
So that should put you in a sweet spot. You're not tapping into food reserves too much. You're keeping food at a good place. That's going to allow you to train hard,
Right.
recover well, and cardio is done either in the morning in a fasted state or post-workout when you're depleted.
Yeah. While we were kind of discussing the importance of cardio for weight loss, another question that comes up is a lot of people want to build muscle while losing fat, because from the fundamental side, building muscle will require surplus and opposite will be a deficit. Can this be done simultaneously?
I personally don't think it's possible because it's two different scenarios. For you to put on muscle, you need to be in a calorie surplus.
Okay.
For you to lose body fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. So how are you going to be achieving both?
Yep.
You physically can't. You're either in a calorie deficit or you're in a calorie surplus.
Right.
So what I normally recommend to someone who would come to me would be, I'd look at their body composition and say they're in an acceptable body composition, 10 to 12%, fine. Let's go straight into a muscle building phase because we have a couple of percent we can play with. We can push.
Okay.
We can have a good calorie surplus. Yes, your body fat will increase during that period. And then once you get to a desired weight where you've added a good amount of tissue, we bring it back down and we transition into calorie deficit where you could see where you're sitting at, how much muscle tissue you've gained.
Right. Since we're also talking about cutting, what are some of Anthony Gowtham's, sorry, just said your first name.
That's
what
all
are
right,
some of your key tips for weight loss? I think this can be more women specific as well, because a lot of questions that come, I want to lose weight. What are some of your key advice and tips when it comes to cutting or weight loss?
I would say the most important one, eating in a calorie deficit. So it's a free app. You can download it, MyFitnessPal.
Yeah.
Put in everything you eat for the day. From the minute you wake up, from the coffee, the milk you add to your coffee, to the last glass of fruit juice you have with dinner.
Right.
Everything goes in, see what your calories are for the day. And then you don't need to do anything drastic. Drop it by 300 calories.
Okay.
That alone you notice a change in the scales, a change in body composition. And then if you do stall, that's when you add in cardio.
Okay.
So a small calorie deficit, increase output. You don't even need to go to the gym. You could go for a half an hour walk around wherever you stay. So just increase your total daily expenditure. Burn more calories. That in turn is going to help you.
That's where you kind of fit in the topic of steps. You said you're doing around 10,000 steps.
Yeah.
Is there a way to increase your calorie expenditure? Is there an easier
yes.
way to kind of...
Yes. It stops you. So that way, if I'm increasing, that's non-exercise expenditure.
Right.
So I try and do that. So then like my cardio can be I don't need to do too much cardio. 25, 30 minutes a day. I'm training and then steps. But I don't account for the steps. So the steps that I gain during training don't count towards my total daily steps. So out with gym, I try and hit the step target, get that done. That way it kind of puts me in a sweet spot. I don't need to do too much cardio and everything's balanced out well.
So much knowledge to kind of get out of Gautham. And just before we kind of come to the closing part of our conversation, as a IFBB competing athlete, right? When we look at you from the outset, we're like, you're probably someone who's always motivated. Are there days where you don't feel motivated to go to the gym? And with this, could you give us some tips to stay consistent, stay motivation? Because not every day do you feel like turning up. What's it like personally for you and what's your advice for us?
I mean, there's so many days I'm not motivated. I wake up sometimes, I'm not feeling great. I don't want to train. I just want to, it might be, because where I stay, it's freezing. It's like 2 degrees at the moment. And it gets dark. It's winter now. So it gets dark at about 3 p.m. So you look outside, it's raining, it's windy. You just want to stay at home, just chill. But then I personally, if I miss a training day, I feel guilty.
Okay.
And because I'm competing, I believe I'm not making the most of what I've been given. And also I think, I never compare myself to anyone else, but I feel like it's giving my competition a chance to level up over me because we're all on an even playing field. So every training. That's what goes into my mind. If I'm missing a training session, I know for a fact whoever I'm gonna go up against is not missing that session.
Okay.
So that alone kind of gets me up, gets me going. And I've done it now. I've been training since 2011 consistently. I've done a minimum of 6 days a week for the last 11 years. It's only this last year that I've been with my new coach and we've dropped our training from 6 to 5 sessions.
Right.
But apart from that, I've just always found a way. I mean, like you said, you're not motivated, but then if you're kind of disciplined, it's 2 hours in your day, get it done with, and then you can kind of do whatever you want to do after.
Okay. Awesome. And it brings to my final question before we kind of wrap things up. I want to kind of open this opportunity for one thing I want to say before we come to the very end of our conversation is he is a qualified coach. And I think while you're listening to this conversation, you're like, I might find this difficult to do it by myself, right? I feel that's where coaching comes into play. And him being a IFBB athlete as well has his own coach where we come to talk about accountability and things, right? So Gautham does you do online coaching as well. So if you guys feel like this what we spoke about is a little difficult, especially if you're starting and you need that extra help, we're gonna put the link of his account for you to kind of reach out to him directly. He's an awesome, humble guy to work with, and I think it's such a pleasure for me to even have him at the studio. Before we wrap up, Gautham, what are your final advice for everyone watching? So this is an open question. Any tips, any advice for someone who's watching who obviously wants to become the best version of themselves? So let's leave that advice and kind of wrap up this conversation.
I would say bodybuilding is... I mean, not everyone here watching this is going to be into bodybuilding, but I believe the way the trend's going and the younger generation coming up all have this unrealistic expectation that they want to look like everyone they see on Instagram. First of all, what you see on Instagram is not what really happens. It's a highlight reel. So just, I would stop comparing yourself to them. Just focus. But like I said, adding muscle, losing weight, all of these things it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So just because your friend does something, loses 10 kilos in 5 weeks, it doesn't mean that you have to meet the same expectation. It's okay. You can take 20 weeks to lose 10 kilos as long as you're making a little bit of progress day in, day out. That's all that matters. Don't rush it. Enjoy the process. And one thing I've noticed that we didn't really talk about is the lack of information here in Sri Lanka. Make sure the 3 fundamental pillars I was talking about, your diet and nutrition, your training, progressive overload, and your sleep and recovery is on point. Even for losing fat, it's so crucial that you get enough sleep. That's gonna, if you're hitting your calorie deficit, you're doing your steps daily, and you getting 3-4 hours of sleep, that's gonna stall your fat loss. Get enough sleep, recover. That's going to help you. And to the young guys coming up, I've noticed, you don't really notice it that much in the high-end gyms, but I've noticed it in gyms like Power World and stuff. 19-year-old kids going in to train, and the first thing, the trainers are like, Mali, make a ganda. Don't listen to those trainers, because what they give you is obviously performance enhancers. And if you're 19, you should be focusing on the 3 fundamentals I spoke about. Taking something like that is just going to stall you. It's going to cause a lot more health problems down the line. Yes, athletes that compete in the IFBB Federation when it gets to that point, are all on some form of enhancement. But they remember, all these guys do that for a living. They have everything in check. And this will help you as long as you have all those in check. So just take your time, hit your natural limit, and once you've done that, then if you want to compete, you can go down that route. But just because some trainer gives you something at a local gym, don't take that, because that's going to cause a lot more health risks down the line.
Awesome. I think what Gautam's kind of leaving us is educate yourself. Take time to research and know about what you're putting into your body, as well as commit to what you're doing. Awesome. As you said, there were a lot of things we couldn't touch on, and I would absolutely love to touch on a lot of other topics as well. Hopefully, if time permits, since he's around for a shorter period of time, we could catch up on another conversation. But once again, if you guys want to directly speak to him, he's on Instagram. I will put his link as well. Always willing to help. He has his coaching services where you kind of get to work directly with him, get his advice, expertise. He will be checking up on you. It's an awesome service. So I would personally recommend, if anyone needs that extra help, accountability, speak to Gautham. I will link him up on the bio. With that, we bring another awesome conversation to an end. We're gonna come back again with another guest with more information. Subscribe to our channel as well. And if you have any questions, you can leave on the comment and we'll get back to you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you with the next one.